Welcome, dear listeners, to another enchanting journey through the realms of mythology. Tonight we'll be traveling across the vast Pacific Ocean to explore the extraordinary adventures of one of Polynesia's greatest heroes, Maui, the demigod, who fished up islands and tamed the sun itself. Before we begin our voyage into this ancient tale, I'd like to invite you to join our growing community of mythology enthusiasts. If you enjoy drifting off to sleep while being transported to magical worlds of gods and heroes, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing these timeless stories to life. I'm also curious to know where in the world you're listening from tonight. Please take a moment to comment below with your city and country. It's always fascinating to see how these ancient tales connect people from across the globe, from the shores of Brazil to the mountains of Japan, from bustling New York to peaceful villages in Kenya. Polynesian mythology is particularly special, as these stories traveled across thousands of miles of open ocean, carried by skilled navigators who used the stars and currents to explore the vastness of the Pacific. The myths of Maui are shared across numerous island cultures, from Hawaii to New Zealand, each adding their own unique elements to his legendary feats. Tonight's story features a hero unlike any other, part god, part human, all trickster. Maui is beloved throughout Polynesian cultures as the clever demigod whose boundless curiosity and daring spirit brought countless blessings to humanity. Though sometimes mischievous, his heart always sought to improve the lives of his people. Now, make yourself comfortable, dim the lights, and let your mind float freely on the gentle waves of the Pacific. As you listen to the remarkable adventures of Maui, allow the stresses of your day to melt away, replaced by the soothing rhythm of ancient storytelling that has lulled generations to peaceful slumber. Maui's story begins with a miraculous birth, one that foreshadowed the extraordinary life he would lead. His mother, Taranga, gave birth to him prematurely while walking along the shore. Believing him to be stillborn, she cut off a lock of her hair, wrapped the tiny infant in it, and cast him into the sea, surrendering him to the embrace of the ocean and the will of the gods. But fate had greater plans for this child. The waves carried the infant Maui to the shore, where sea foam cradled him. The gods themselves took notice of this abandoned child. Rangi, the Sky Father, saw the infant from his celestial realm and sent his messengers to rescue him. The divine beings carefully lifted the child from the ocean's edge and carried him to the heavens. In the realm of the gods, Maui was raised with special care. His divine guardians wrapped him in dogskin and fed him on sacred food that granted him supernatural powers. They taught him the ancient wisdom of the cosmos and bestowed upon him magical abilities that no ordinary human could possess. As he grew, the gods recognized his quick wit, boundless curiosity, and daring spirit, qualities that would one day change the world. Years passed, and Maui grew strong under the gods' tutelage. Yet, he always felt a longing to discover his true origins. When he reached young adulthood, his divine guardian finally revealed the truth. He was not born of the gods, but of a human mother who had cast him away. Rather than becoming bitter, this knowledge ignited in Maui a burning desire to find his mortal family and discover where he truly belonged. Guided by his divine guardians, Maui descended from the heavens to the world of humans. He followed his instincts until he came upon a village where a woman sat weaving with her children around her. Something in his heart told him this was his mother, Taranga, and these were his brothers. He watched them from afar, planning how he might join them and be accepted as part of their family. That night, while his mother and brothers slept in their communal house, Maui silently crept inside. He nestled himself among his sleeping brothers, a stranger in what should have been his home from birth. When morning came, Taranga awoke to find an extra child among her sons. She questioned who this intruder might be, but as she looked into his eyes, a distant memory stirred within her. The child she had cast into the sea years ago had somehow returned. In the time after Maui reunited with his family, he observed the difficult conditions under which humans lived. The most pressing problem was that the sky hung too low over the earth. It pressed down so heavily that people could not stand upright, forced to crawl on their hands and knees. Trees could not grow tall, and the air was thick and difficult to breathe. Humans lived cramped, uncomfortable lives, unable to build proper homes or cultivate food with ease. Seeing this plight, Maui was filled with compassion and determination. He announced to his family, "I shall push the sky higher so that people may stand tall and live better lives." His brothers laughed at his ambition, believing such a task impossible even for one with divine heritage. "The sky is too heavy," they scoffed. "Even the gods have accepted its position." But Maui was undeterred by their doubts. He had been raised by the gods themselves and knew that with clever planning and great strength, even the seemingly impossible could be achieved. Maui journeyed to the place where the edge of the sky met the horizon. There he planted his feet firmly on the ground and placed his strong shoulders against the heavy dome of the heavens. With a deep breath, he began to push upward with all his might. The sky resisted at first, its weight almost crushing him. Sweat poured down his face and his muscles strained to their limit, but still he pushed with unwavering determination. Gradually, the sky began to yield to his strength. Inch by inch it rose higher above the earth. Maui pushed and pushed, not stopping even when exhaustion threatened to overcome him. He thought of the people crawling on the ground, of the stunted trees and plants, of the children who had never known what it was to stand tall. This vision renewed his strength, and with a mighty final effort, he thrust the sky far above the earth, securing it in place with invisible pillars that would hold it high forevermore. As the sky rose, a remarkable transformation occurred. Fresh air rushed in to fill the newly created space. Plants began to stretch upward, growing taller than ever before. Humans who had lived their entire lives hunched over, slowly straightened their backs and stood upright for the first time. They looked up in wonder at the vast blue expanse above them, marveling at the newfound spaciousness of their world. The people's gratitude was boundless. They celebrated Maui's feat with songs and dances, honoring him as their first great hero. Word of his accomplishment spread quickly across the land. The gods, too, were impressed by the young demigod's strength and determination. Though some had initially been displeased by his interference with the natural order, they could not deny that his actions had improved the lives of humans, whom many of the gods cherished. This first heroic deed established Maui's reputation as a benefactor of humanity. It demonstrated not only his extraordinary physical strength, but also his compassion and willingness to challenge the status quo. More importantly, it revealed his special role in the cosmos, to serve as a bridge between the divine and human realms, using his unique abilities to improve the conditions of mortal existence. With the sky lifted, people could now build proper homes, grow abundant crops, and move freely through their world. This newfound freedom sparked a renaissance of human creativity and progress. Maui watched with satisfaction as villages thrived and expanded, knowing that his intervention had made this possible. Yet, this was only the beginning of his heroic journey. Many more challenges awaited, and many more gifts he would bring to humanity through his courage and cleverness. Before Maui's intervention, humans lived in a world of perpetual cold and darkness after sunset. They ate their food raw, shivered through the night, and feared the creatures that lurked in the shadows. Though they had seen lightning strike and ignite brief flames, they had no knowledge of how to create or preserve fire themselves. The secret of fire belonged solely to the fire goddess Mahuika, who jealously guarded this powerful element in her dwelling place at the edge of the underworld. Witnessing the struggles of his people, Maui resolved to bring them the gift of fire. "I shall journey to Mahuika and obtain fire for humanity," he declared to his mother. His mother warned him of the dangers, saying, "Mahuika is not known for her generosity, and she guards her flames with fierce determination." Maui simply smiled with the confidence that had become his trademark. "Then I shall have to be more clever than she is fierce," he replied, already formulating a plan in his mind. Maui traveled for many days until he reached the boundary between the world of the living and the underworld. There, at the entrance to a dark cave illuminated by an eerie glow from within, he called out, "Mahuika, grandmother of fire, I come with respect to seek your aid." His voice echoed through the cavern, and soon the fire goddess emerged. She was an imposing figure. Her hair blazed with living flames, her fingernails glowed like embers, and her eyes flickered with the intensity of a forest fire. "Who disturbs my dwelling?" demanded Mahuika, her voice crackling like burning wood. Maui bowed low, maintaining a humble demeanor. "I am Maui, grandson of the gods. The fire in our village has gone out during an important ceremony, and I have been sent to request a flame to rekindle our hearth." This was, of course, a clever lie. Humans had no fire to lose. But Maui knew that appealing to tradition might soften the goddess's heart. Mahuika studied him suspiciously, but was moved by his apparent reverence and the mention of sacred ceremonies. After careful consideration, Mahuika plucked one of her flaming fingernails and handed it to Maui. "Take this, but guard it well," she instructed. Maui thanked her profusely and departed, but once out of sight he deliberately extinguished the flame in a nearby stream. Returning to Mahuika, he apologized profusely, claiming the flame had accidentally been doused while crossing a river. The goddess, though somewhat irritated, provided another of her flaming fingernails. Maui repeated this trick several times, each time returning with a story of how the previous flame had been accidentally extinguished. After Maui had acquired and extinguished several of her fingernails, Mahuika finally realized she was being deceived. Her anger erupted like a volcano, and she hurled her remaining fire at Maui, intending to consume him completely. Maui, swift and agile, transformed himself into a hawk and soared above the flames. But the fire pursued him, spreading rapidly across the landscape, threatening to burn everything in its path. In desperate flight, Maui called upon his ancestor, Tauhiri Matea, the god of weather, who responded with a deluge of rain that extinguished most of Mahuika's fire. Though most of the fire was quenched by the rain, not all was lost. Before the flames were completely extinguished, Maui observed that certain trees caught and held the fire within themselves. He swooped down and saw that the kaikomako, mahoi, and several other trees had absorbed some of the goddess's fire essence. Returning to his human form, Maui gathered branches from these trees and discovered that by rubbing them together vigorously, he could coax the hidden fire to emerge. With this precious knowledge, Maui returned triumphantly to his people. He taught them how to select the right woods, how to prepare the fire sticks, and how to create friction that would bring forth embers. He showed them how to nurture a tiny spark into a roaring flame, and how to keep fire alive by feeding it properly. This knowledge transformed human existence. Now they could cook their food, warm their homes, craft tools, and keep predators at bay. The gift of fire marked the beginning of true civilization, all thanks to Maui's daring and cleverness in outwitting the fire goddess herself. Among all of Maui's legendary accomplishments, none is more renowned than his extraordinary feat of fishing up islands from the depths of the ocean. In those days, the people of Maui's island felt cramped in their small land, surrounded by the vast, seemingly endless waters. They dreamed of new territories to explore and settle, new forests to hunt in, and new fields to cultivate. Maui, ever attentive to the needs of humans, decided to use his divine powers to expand their world. Essential to this ambitious task was Maui's most treasured possession, his magical fishhook, known as Manayakalani. This was no ordinary fishing implement, but a hook crafted from the jawbone of his divine ancestor, Muriranga Wenua. It was imbued with supernatural powers and inscribed with sacred symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. The hook could catch things that existed beyond the realm of ordinary perception, things hidden in the deepest ocean or concealed by magic. One early morning, Maui invited his brothers to join him on a fishing expedition. They eagerly agreed, anticipating a day of catching ordinary fish to feed their families. As they prepared their canoe, Maui casually mentioned his plan to catch something truly spectacular. His brothers exchanged knowing glances, accustomed to their youngest siblings' grandiose claims. "Always boasting, little brother," one teased. "Will you catch the ocean itself this time?" They laughed, but Maui only smiled mysteriously as they paddled out to the deep waters. Once they had reached far beyond sight of land, Maui instructed his brothers to keep rowing while he prepared his hook. From a small pouch, he removed his magical fishhook. which gleamed with an otherworldly light even under the bright sun. His brothers fell silent, suddenly aware that this might not be an ordinary fishing trip after all. Maui then performed a sacred ritual, chanting powerful incantations as he baited his hook with a small amount of his own blood, for only something of himself could help him catch something as significant as land. With a mighty cast, Maui sent his hook plunging into the depths. "Row now, brothers," he commanded. "Row with all your strength and do not look back whatever happens. Do not stop rowing no matter how difficult it becomes." His brothers, though confused, obeyed and rowed with steady determination. Soon the canoe began to slow as if caught on something massive. The water around them churned and bubbled. The brothers strained at their paddles, muscles burning with effort, while Maui held fast to his fishing line, which was pulled taut with tremendous tension. "I have caught something great from the ocean floor," Maui shouted above the increasingly violent waters. "Keep rowing, help me bring up this mighty catch." The brothers rowed harder than they ever had before, and Maui pulled on his line with all his superhuman strength. Gradually, something enormous began to rise from the depths. The ocean swelled and parted as a vast shape emerged from below. Not a fish, but land itself. Mountains and valleys, forests and plains broke the surface, water cascading from their newly exposed features. Maui's brothers were struck speechless with awe as they realized what he had accomplished. The demigod had literally fished up a new island from the seabed. But their amazement quickly turned to terror when one brother, unable to contain his curiosity, looked back at the emerging land. This violated the sacred rules of Maui's fishing magic. Immediately, the rising land stopped its ascent, and parts of it broke off and sank back beneath the waves. What might have been an even larger continent became instead a collection of islands, still an impressive catch, but not as complete as Maui had intended. Despite this setback, Maui's feat was celebrated throughout Polynesia. The islands he pulled from the ocean depths became new homes for his people, who spread across them, establishing communities that would grow into diverse cultures. In different versions of the legend told across the Pacific, Maui is credited with fishing up various island groups, the Hawaiian Islands, New Zealand, Tahiti, and many others. Each culture claims him as their own, a testament to the profound impact his story had on the peoples of the Pacific, who carried his legend with them as they navigated the vast ocean in their remarkable voyaging canoes. In the early days of the world, the sun was a fickle and hasty deity. It raced across the sky at tremendous speed, giving humans only a few hours of daylight before plunging the world back into darkness. This rapid transit of the sun created immense hardship for the people. Women couldn't properly dry their tapacloth, fishermen had insufficient time to catch enough food, and farmers struggled to tend their crops in the brief hours of light. Everyone lived in a constant rush, forever, battling against the sun's relentless pace. Maui listened to the complaints of his people and observed their struggles. He watched his mother, Hina, attempting to beat and dry tapacloth in the fleeting daylight, only to have darkness fall before her work was complete. "Why must we live at the mercy of the sun's haste?" he asked her one evening as she put aside her unfinished work with a sigh. "Because that is how it has always been," she replied. "The sun thinks only of its own journey, not of our needs." Maui's eyes narrowed with determination. "Then perhaps," he said, "it's time the sun learned to consider us." Understanding that this would be his greatest challenge yet, Maui sought the help of his mother in preparing special ropes. These were no ordinary bindings, but enchanted cords woven from the sacred fibers of the coconut husk, strengthened with his mother's magic and his own divine power. For many nights they worked together, twisting and braiding the fibers while Maui chanted ancient spells that would ensure the ropes could withstand the sun's fierce heat without burning away to ash. When finished, the ropes glowed with inner power, ready for their extraordinary purpose. Maui's plan was audacious. He would capture the sun itself and force it to slow its daily journey. He recruited his brothers, who, despite their initial skepticism, had come to respect Maui's abilities after witnessing him fish up islands. Together, they journeyed to the eastern edge of the world, where the sun emerged each morning from its nighttime dwelling in the underworld. They arrived under cover of darkness and concealed themselves near the sun's pathway, behind large boulders and within deep trenches that Maui dug with his magical fishhook. As the first light of dawn appeared on the horizon, Maui instructed his brothers, "When the sun begins to rise and I give the signal, cast your ropes over it as I have taught you. Do not hesitate, do not fear its heat, and whatever happens, do not let go." His brothers nodded grimly, clutching their enchanted ropes with white-knuckled determination. They could feel the ground trembling as the sun approached, its immense power radiating even before it became visible. Many would have fled in terror, but Maui's brothers trusted him and stood their ground. The moment arrived as the massive, blazing form of the sun began to emerge from the underworld. "Now!" Maui shouted, leaping from his hiding place with supernatural agility. He cast his ropes over the sun, his brothers following his lead with perfect coordination. Their enchanted cords lassoed the great celestial body, which roared in surprise and anger. The heat was nearly unbearable, but the magic in the ropes protected the brothers as they held fast, pulling with all their might to restrain the furious sun, which struggled violently against this unexpected assault. Maui approached the ensnared sun, unafraid despite its blinding brilliance and scorching heat. "Listen well, Great One," he called out in a commanding voice that carried the authority of his divine heritage. "Each day you race across our sky with no thought for the people below. We need more time with your light to live and work and thrive. From this day forward, you will travel more slowly, giving us the daylight hours we require." The sun flared with indignation, its rays lashing out like whips of fire, but Maui stood firm, undaunted by its display of power. A tremendous battle of wills ensued as the sun fought against its constraints and Maui refused to yield. Finally, realizing it was truly caught and that Maui would not release it without agreement, the sun relented. "I will slow my journey," it conceded, its voice like the crackling of 1,000 fires. "Half the year, I will travel more slowly across your skies, but in return, during the other half, I must be allowed to make a faster passage." Maui considered this compromise and found it fair. He released the sun from most of the ropes, but left one as a reminder of their pact. This is why, according to the legend, the days are longer in summer and shorter in winter, a lasting testament to the time when Maui tamed the sun for the benefit of humanity. After bringing countless gifts to humanity and accomplishing feats that had transformed the world, Maui began to contemplate the one enemy that neither his strength nor his cleverness had yet overcome: death itself. He had observed the inevitable aging and passing of humans, how even the strongest warriors and wisest elders eventually succumbed to mortality. This troubled the demigod deeply. "What good are all my gifts to humanity?" he pondered, "if people have only a brief time to enjoy them before death claims them?" Maui shared his concerns with his mother, Taranga, who had reconnected with her divine wisdom since their reunion. "Death is part of the natural order," she cautioned. "It gives meaning to life and completes the great cycle." But Maui, ever defiant of limitations, shook his head. "The gods do not die," he argued. "Why should humans be denied such a privilege? If I can lift the sky and tame the sun, surely I can defeat death as well." Taranga looked at her son with a mixture of pride and concern, knowing his ambition might finally exceed even his extraordinary capabilities. Nevertheless, determined to secure this ultimate gift for humanity, Maui began to formulate a plan. Ancient knowledge told of Hinenuitepo, the goddess of death and the underworld, who claimed all souls at the end of their mortal journey. According to legend, the secret to immortality lay within her body. If someone could pass through Hinenuitepo while she slept, entering through her mouth and emerging from her heart without waking her, death's power would be broken, and immortality would be granted to all humankind. Maui prepared meticulously for this most dangerous quest. He gathered sacred items to protect himself and practiced shape-shifting into various small creatures that might pass unnoticed. He recruited the help of his animal friends, the fantail, the robin, the warbler, and other forest birds, to accompany him and remain silent during his attempt. "You must not make a sound," he instructed them seriously. "No matter what happens, you must remain absolutely quiet. or the goddess will awaken and destroy me instantly. After months of preparation, Maui and his bird companions journeyed to the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of death. There, in a sacred grove shrouded in perpetual twilight, they found Hinenui Tepo in deep slumber. She was an awe-inspiring sight, a figure of immense power, simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Her body was partly human and partly formed, of land and stone, with obsidian teeth that gleamed in the dim light. Maui could sense her divine energy pulsating even in sleep, a force as ancient as creation itself. Maui transformed himself into a lizard to better navigate the treacherous path through the goddess. He approached cautiously, motioning for his bird friends to remain absolutely still and quiet. As he began to enter the mouth of the sleeping goddess, the birds watched with bated breath. Maui's plan seemed to be working. He was making progress. Through the interior of Hinenui Tepo, inching ever closer to her heart, the source of death's power over humanity. However, as Maui was halfway through his dangerous journey, an unexpected turn of events occurred. The sight of the mighty demigod wriggling through the goddess in lizard form struck the fantail bird as utterly comical. Despite Maui's strict instructions, the fantail could not contain himself and let out a chirp of laughter. The other birds, startled by this breach of silence, also began to twitter nervously. The sounds, though small, were enough to disturb the sleep of Hinenui Tepo, who instantly sensed the intrusion into her sacred body. The goddess's eyes snapped open, blazing with fury at this violation. Immediately recognizing what Maui was, attempting, she clamped her obsidian teeth together, cutting the demigod in two. Maui's divine essence was forever trapped between the worlds of life and death. Thus the quest for immortality ended in tragedy, and death remained an inescapable part of human existence. This is why, according to Polynesian myth, humans must die, because even the clever and powerful Maui could not overcome the final boundary. His failure serves as a reminder that some natural laws cannot be broken, even by the greatest of heroes. The legends of Maui did not remain confined to a single island or culture, but spread across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, carried by intrepid voyagers in their double-hulled canoes. As Polynesian navigators used stars and currents to discover and settle new islands across the Pacific Triangle, from Hawaii in the north to New Zealand in the south and Easter Island in the east, they brought Maui's stories with them, adapting them to new landscapes and cultural contexts while preserving their essential elements. In Hawaii, Maui became particularly revered, with the second-largest island bearing his name. Hawaiian traditions emphasize his role as a cultural hero who shaped their archipelago and improved the conditions of human life. The massive shield volcano Haleakala, or House of the Sun, is where Hawaiians believe Maui snared the sun, standing atop this 10,000-foot summit to capture the celestial body. Even today, watching the sunrise from Haleakala remains a profound cultural experience, connecting modern visitors to this ancient legend. Among the Maori of New Zealand, Aotearoa, Maui is known as Maui Tikitikia Taranga, and his fishing prowess is celebrated as having created their homeland. The North Island of New Zealand is called Te Ika a Maui, the fish of Maui, while the South Island is his canoe, Te Waka a Maui. The Maori developed elaborate carvings and tattoo art, tamoko, that frequently depict scenes from Maui's adventures, preserving his stories not only through oral tradition, but also through visual arts that continue to influence contemporary Maori cultural expression. In Tahitian mythology, Maui's character takes on slightly different attributes, though his core identity as a benefactor of humanity remains. The Tahitians emphasize his role in creating their island paradise and establishing proper relationships between humans and gods. Throughout the Marquesas, Cook Islands, and Samoa, variations of Maui legends reflect local geography and cultural priorities while maintaining the essential themes of his cleverness, strength, and determination to improve human existence through challenging divine limitations. What makes Maui's legacy so remarkable is not just its geographic spread, but its cultural resilience. Despite centuries of colonial influence and Western cultural pressure, these stories have survived, passed down through generations by storytellers who recognized their importance in preserving cultural identity. In many Polynesian communities that experienced cultural suppression during the colonial era, the resurgence of traditional narratives, including Maui's adventures, has become central to cultural revival movements and the reclamation of indigenous identity. The physical landmarks associated with Maui's exploits serve as tangible connections to these ancient stories. From lava formations in Hawaii, believed to be where Maui battled the fire goddess, to coastal rock formations in New Zealand, identified as the fishhook he used to pull up land, the natural landscape itself reinforces and gives permanence to his legends. These sacred sites continue to be visited with reverence by those seeking to honor their cultural heritage and connect with ancestral wisdom. Modern interpretations of Maui's stories have reached global audiences through literature, art, and popular media, most notably in contemporary films that introduce these ancient Polynesian narratives to new generations worldwide. While these modern adaptations sometimes simplify or alter elements of the original myths, they have nonetheless sparked renewed interest in authentic Polynesian cultural traditions and created opportunities for indigenous voices to share their heritage on an international stage. Perhaps most significantly, Maui's legacy lives on in the values his stories embody: innovation, perseverance, and the courage to challenge limitations for the greater good. Many Pacific Island educators and cultural practitioners use Maui's adventures as teaching tools, helping young people understand their cultural heritage while drawing lessons about creativity, problem-solving, and responsible use of knowledge and power. In this way, the demigod who lived between the worlds of gods and humans continues to serve as a bridge, now connecting ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges faced by Polynesian communities and the wider world. Beyond their entertainment, value and cultural significance, Maui's legends carry profound symbolic meanings that have resonated across generations of Polynesian peoples. At his core, Maui represents the archetype of the trickster hero, a figure found in mythologies worldwide, from Loki in Norse legends to Coyote in Native American traditions. As a trickster, Maui operates at the boundaries between order and chaos, between divine law and human need, using his wit to bend rules rather than break them outright. This liminality makes him the perfect mediator between the human and divine realms. The consistent theme of Maui bringing beneficial knowledge and tools to humanity, fire, longer days, fishing techniques, and more, reflects the deeply held Polynesian value of sharing prosperity rather than hoarding it. His willingness to challenge gods and cosmic forces on behalf of humans embodies the cultural ideal that power should serve community needs rather than merely aggrandize the powerful. Leaders in traditional Polynesian societies were expected to use their authority to benefit their people, just as Maui used his divine gifts to improve human condition, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of ethical leadership encoded within these ancient narratives. Maui's adventures often provide explanations for natural phenomena, serving as proto-scientific accounts of the world's workings. The slowing of the sun explains seasonal changes in daylight hours. His fishing up islands explains geological formations. His fire quest explains the properties of certain woods that make them suitable for fire starting. These etiological elements of the myths helped ancient Polynesians understand and relate to their natural environment, creating a coherent worldview that integrated spiritual beliefs with practical knowledge of the natural world they navigated and depended upon. The character of Maui himself embodies a uniquely Polynesian understanding of heroism that balances seemingly contradictory qualities. Unlike heroes in many Western traditions, who might rely primarily on physical strength or moral purity, Maui succeeds through a combination of physical power, intellectual cleverness, spiritual knowledge, and adaptability. His shape-shifting abilities symbolize the value of versatility in a maritime culture, where survival often depended on adapting to rapidly changing conditions. This holistic model of heroism suggests that true greatness comes not from excelling in one area, but from integrating diverse strengths. Particularly significant is how Maui's myths address the tension between innovation and tradition. While he constantly pushes boundaries and brings change, he does so within a framework of respect for fundamental cosmic order. His final failed quest for immortality serves as a powerful reminder that not all limitations should be overcome. Some boundaries exist for important reasons. This nuanced approach to progress reflects Polynesian culture's sophisticated balancing of innovation necessary for survival as they voyage to new islands, with traditional knowledge equally necessary for maintaining cultural continuity across vast distances and generations. The environmental themes embedded in Maui's stories take on renewed relevance in our contemporary world facing ecological challenges. His respectful yet transformative relationship with the natural world, fishing up islands but not destroying the ocean, slowing the sun but not stopping it entirely, models a form of environmental stewardship that acknowledges human needs while respecting natural systems. Many modern Pacific environmental activists draw inspiration from these traditional narratives, finding in them indigenous frameworks for sustainable human-nature relationships. The educational value of Maui's stories extends beyond their cultural content to their cognitive impact. The complex, multi-layered narratives develop critical thinking skills as listeners must track cause and effect, recognize patterns, anticipate consequences, and evaluate ethical dimensions of actions. Traditional storytellers would often pause during key moments to ask their audience what they thought might happen next, or what they would do in Maui's position, using the myths as frameworks for developing judgment and decision-making abilities. In younger generations, perhaps most powerfully, Maui's legends speak to universal human experiences and aspirations. His miraculous birth and search for family reflects our quest for identity and belonging. His efforts to improve human conditions speaks to our desire to leave the world better than we found it. His ultimate failure to achieve immortality confronts our shared mortality and need to find meaning within finite existence. These universal elements explain why Maui's stories continue to resonate not only within Polynesian cultures, but increasingly with global audiences who recognize in this ancient Pacific hero timeless truths about what it means to be human. In Hawaiian tradition, Maui is portrayed as the ultimate adventurer, whose exploits are deeply tied to the island chain's volcanic landscape. Hawaiian legends uniquely emphasize his relationship with his mother Hina, who often serves as his moral compass and source of wisdom. The massive volcano Haleakala, House of the Sun, stands as the most impressive physical monument to Maui's deeds, with its summit crater representing the exact location where he captured the sun and negotiated its slower path across the sky, the kai. Maori of New Zealand, Aotearoa, know him as Maui Tiki Tiki a Taranga, emphasizing the sacred topknot tiki tiki his mother used to wrap him in before casting him to sea. Maori legends add distinctive elements to his character, portraying him as not just clever, but also mischievous and sometimes impulsive. Their traditions place special emphasis on his fishing exploits and elaborate wakapapa genealogies trace how his actions directly shaped the dramatic North Island landscape, with specific mountains, rivers, and rock formations attributed to his great fish catch. Samoan mythology presents Maui with a stronger emphasis on his role as a cultural founder and teacher. Here he is credited with instructing humans in the art of fire-making, construction techniques, and proper rituals for respecting the gods. Samoan versions of his legends often involve complex family dynamics, with Maui navigating relationships not just with gods, but with numerous siblings and extended family members, reflecting the centrality of aiga, family, in Samoan cultural values and social organization. In Tongan oral tradition, Maui appears as a figure of immense physical strength and determination. Tongan stories describe how he not only lifted the sky, but physically supported it on his shoulders for extended periods. Some Tongan narratives depict multiple Maui figures, Maui Kisikisi, Maui Atalanga, and Maui Fusifonua, representing different aspects of the hero or generations of divine beings sharing the same name. This multiplicity reflects the complex layering of stories that occurred as legends traveled across the Pacific through generations of oral transmission. Throughout the Marquesas Islands, Maui stories particularly emphasize his role as a transformer of landscapes. Here, specific rock formations, coastal features, and mountain passes are explained as direct results of Maui's actions, footprints left during his battles, stones he threw in anger, or passages he created to make human travel easier. This intimate connection between myth and physical geography helped ancient Marquesans navigate their environment while reinforcing cultural identity through shared stories attached to specific places. Tahitian versions of Maui's adventures emphasize his relationships with other gods in more detail than some traditions. Here, Maui is portrayed as navigating a complex divine hierarchy, sometimes serving as a mediator between major deities like Ta'aroa, the creator, and Tane, god of forests and light. Tahitian legends also elaborate on his early childhood among the gods, before his return to humanity, describing specific divine mentors who taught him various magical techniques and bestowed special powers upon him. What remains consistent across all these cultural variations is Maui's fundamental character as a boundary crosser, neither fully god nor fully human, but uniquely positioned to bridge these realms for the benefit of humanity. The specific emphasis and details may shift from island to island, but his essential role as a clever, determined culture hero who improves the human condition through extraordinary deeds remains the bedrock of his character throughout Polynesia. The remarkable consistency of core Maui narratives across such vast distances serves as powerful evidence of the shared cultural origins of Polynesian peoples, despite their dispersal across the world's largest ocean. Linguists, archaeologists, and cultural anthropologists have used these narrative similarities to help reconstruct ancient migration patterns, with variations in the stories aligning with the established timeline of settlement throughout the Pacific Triangle. Central to Maui's legendary feats were several magical objects of extraordinary power, none more famous than his fishhook, Manai Akalani. This wasn't merely a tool, but a sacred treasure imbued with divine essence. Crafted from the jawbone of his ancestral grandmother, Muriranga Wenua, the hook possessed consciousness of its own and could change size according to need, from small, enough to fit in Maui's hand, to large enough to snag the ocean floor. Intricate carvings covered its surface, each pattern containing encoded wisdom and magical properties that activated when proper incantations were recited. The enchanted ropes Maui used to snare the sun represent another crucial element of his magical arsenal. According to most versions of the legend, these weren't ordinary bindings but were woven from the sacred hair of his sister, Hina. In some traditions, the ropes were strengthened through a complex ritual process that involved soaking them in sacred pools and drying them in moonlight for 16 consecutive nights. Their unique composition made them resistant to the sun's intense heat, allowing them to withstand temperatures that would have instantly incinerated ordinary materials. Maui's war club, sometimes called ru'irui in Eastern Polynesian traditions, served as both weapon and symbol of authority. Carved from the dense wood of the ironwood tree and inlaid with shark's teeth along its striking edge, this formidable weapon could supposedly split mountains when wielded with Maui's full strength. Some legends describe how the club contained spirits that would cry out warnings when danger approached, making it not just a weapon, but a protective talisman that kept Maui safe during his dangerous journeys between the mortal world and divine realms. Less frequently mentioned but equally significant was Maui's sacred cloak, woven by his mother from feathers of birds that existed in both the mortal and divine worlds. This garment granted him limited shape-shifting abilities and protection from harmful magic. When wrapped entirely in this cloak, Maui could become invisible to divine beings, allowing him to move undetected among the gods. The creation of this cloak required gathering feathers from 16 different sacred birds, each contributing unique protective properties. The cloak's inner lining contained intricate patterns that, when traced with the finger, activated different magical properties. The calabash or gourd that Maui used to capture and store the winds appears primarily in Hawaiian versions of his legends. This container, given to him by his divine ancestor Cain, allowed Maui to control weather patterns by capturing excessive winds that threatened fishermen's canoes and releasing gentle breezes when needed. The calabash was marked with sacred symbols representing different wind patterns, and by touching these symbols while chanting specific prayers, Maui could summon precisely the type of wind needed for various human activities, from sailing to drying tapa cloth. In some traditions, Maui possessed magical sandals or footwear that allowed him to take enormous strides, covering vast distances with each step. These were crafted from the skin of a great sea turtle that had carried gods across the ocean since the beginning of time. The sandals retained the turtle's affinity for travel, and when worn connected Maui to ancient pathways known only to the oldest beings in creation. With these, he could traverse not only physical distances, but occasionally cross the boundaries between different layers of reality. The tools and objects associated with Maui reflect Polynesian cultural values around craftsmanship and the sacred nature of properly made items. In traditional Polynesian societies, the creation of important tools involved not just technical skill but spiritual preparation, proper rituals, and the encoding of cultural knowledge into physical objects. The maker's mana, spiritual power, transferred into the object, and items made by or for those of high status contained greater spiritual potency. Maui's magical tools represent the pinnacle of this concept, objects of such perfect craftsmanship and spiritual significance that they transcended ordinary physical limitations. Archaeological evidence throughout Polynesia reveals the historical importance of the actual tools that inspired these legendary objects. Fish hooks of extraordinary craftsmanship have been excavated from ancient sites, some made from human bone, others from pearl shell or whale ivory. Ceremonial clubs similar to Maui's war club have been preserved in museum collections, demonstrating the artistic sophistication and symbolic importance of these items. By connecting these archaeological finds to the magical objects in Maui's legends, cultural historians gain deeper insight into how ancient Polynesians understood the relationship between craftsmanship, spiritual power, and human achievement. Throughout Maui's legendary adventures, powerful female figures played crucial roles that often receive less attention than his dramatic feats. Yet without them, many of his accomplishments would have been impossible. Most significant was his mother, known variously as Taranga, Hina, or Hina Atelepo across different Polynesian traditions. Though she initially cast him away, their later reunion provided Maui with essential spiritual knowledge and practical assistance. It was she who taught him sacred chants that gave power to his magical objects, and who wove the special ropes that allowed him to snare the sun. Hina, sometimes portrayed as Maui's mother, sometimes as his wife or sister in different cultural variations, often represents the complement to Maui's impulsive action with her patience and wisdom. While Maui confronted challenges through direct intervention, Hina embodied the power of steady, consistent work. In many traditions, she is associated with the moon, just as Maui is connected to the sun, creating a balanced cosmic partnership. Her patient beating of tapa cloth stands in contrast to Maui's dramatic confrontations, yet both activities are portrayed as essential for human flourishing. Mahuika, the formidable fire goddess from whom Maui stole the secret of fire, represents divine female power that commands respect even from heroes. Unlike many defeated antagonists in world mythology, Mahuika is never truly conquered. Even when Maui succeeds in obtaining fire, it is her essence that lives on in the woods that can produce flame. Some traditions describe her not as an enemy, but as a grandmother figure to Maui, suggesting a complex relationship where her anger at his deception is balanced by a grudging recognition of humanity's need for the gift she guarded. The goddess of death, Hinenuitepo, represents the ultimate female power that even Maui could not overcome. Described as beautiful and terrible simultaneously, she maintains the necessary boundary between life and death that sustains the cosmic order. In some traditions, she was once Hainetetama, the dawn maiden and daughter of the creator god Tane, who retreated to the underworld upon discovering her father had taken her as his wife. This backstory adds layers of complexity to her character, presenting her not simply as an antagonist, but as a divine being who chose to rule the underworld with dignity after suffering betrayal. Less prominent but still significant were Maui's female siblings, who in some traditions helped him prepare for his heroic tasks. In Hawaiian variations, his sisters taught him specific skills needed for his quests. One showed him how to make proper offerings to appease angry gods, another taught him to recognize safe paths through dangerous terrain, and a third instructed him in the creation of protective talismans. These sisters represent specialized feminine knowledge that complemented Maui's more direct approach to problem-solving. An often overlooked female presence in Maui's legends is his ancestress Muriranga Whenua, whose jawbone became his magical fishhook. Though usually mentioned only briefly in the tales, her willingness to provide her own body part, either before or after death depending on the version, represents a profound ancestral sacrifice that empowered Maui's greatest achievement. Some deeper interpretations suggest that the hook's power came not just from its divine origin, but specifically from the wisdom contained in the jawbone, the seat of speech, and the transmission of knowledge. These female figures in Maui's stories reflect the complementary gender roles in traditional Polynesian societies, where women held significant spiritual and practical authority. While men and women had distinct societal responsibilities, both were considered essential to community survival and prosperity. Women were often the primary keepers of genealogical knowledge, sacred chants, and healing practices, possessing forms of power different from but equal in importance to male-dominated activities like fishing and warfare. The balanced portrayal of masculine and feminine forces in Polynesian mythology contrasts with some other world mythological traditions, where female characters might be portrayed primarily as prizes to be won or obstacles to be overcome. In Maui's legends, female characters possess their own agency, wisdom and power sources that the hero must respect and sometimes rely upon. This balanced cosmic view reflects Polynesian understanding of the world as maintained through complementary forces: sky and earth, sun and moon, ocean and land, masculine and feminine, each essential to the harmony of existence. The legend of Maui offers timeless wisdom that transcends its Polynesian origins, presenting universal insights about human potential and limitations that remain relevant in our contemporary world. Perhaps the most powerful lesson emerges from Maui's persistent questioning of accepted boundaries. From his earliest adventures, he refused to accept the world as unchangeable, challenging the notion that humans must simply endure difficult conditions without seeking improvement. This revolutionary mindset that the status quo can be questioned and transformed through ingenuity and determined action contains seeds of both scientific inquiry and social progress. Maui's approach to problem-solving demonstrates the power of integrating different types of intelligence. He succeeds not through brute force alone, nor through pure cleverness, but through a harmonious application of physical strength, intellectual strategy, spiritual knowledge, and social awareness. This holistic approach to addressing challenges offers a compelling alternative to modern tendencies to overspecialize or to value certain types of intelligence over others. Maui reminds us that our most significant problems, whether personal, societal, or global, require engaging our full human capacities in balanced coordination. The complexity of Maui's character itself provides valuable perspectives on human nature. Neither perfectly virtuous nor villainous, he embodies the reality that most humans contain contradictory qualities. He is simultaneously selfless in his desire to help humanity and self-aggrandizing in his pursuit of recognition, courageously, determined yet occasionally reckless, respectful of important boundaries while constantly testing others. This nuanced portrayal suggests that human greatness does not require moral perfection, but rather the constructive channeling of our complex attributes toward beneficial ends. In an age increasingly concerned with environmental sustainability, Maui's relationship with the natural world offers thought-provoking perspectives. He intervenes in natural processes, but never seeks to destroy or completely dominate them. He slows the sun rather than stopping it. He fishes up land from the existing seabed rather than creating it from nothing. He discovers fire's secret in certain woods rather than inventing it artificially. This model of working with and respecting natural forces while shaping them for human benefit presents a middle path between untouched wilderness and complete technological domination. The fatal conclusion of Maui's quest for immortality serves as a powerful reminder of fundamental limitations that even the greatest heroes must accept. This unsuccessful final adventure suggests that wisdom includes recognizing which boundaries should be respected, not just identifying which ones can be overcome. In a modern context, where technological advancement sometimes seems to promise unlimited human control over nature and even death itself, this ancient caution against hubris remains profoundly relevant, suggesting that true wisdom includes acceptance of certain natural limitations. Throughout his adventures, Maui consistently demonstrates the importance of preparation, careful observation, and proper timing. Before attempting to snare the sun, he studies its path carefully and creates specially designed ropes. Before fishing up islands, he crafts the perfect hook and chooses the optimal location. Before challenging Mahuika, he plans multiple approaches to secure fire. This methodical aspect of his heroism reminds us that even the most ambitious goals require careful groundwork and strategic planning, a lesson applicable to everything from personal projects to organizational leadership. The collaborative elements in Maui's accomplishments highlight the value of community and cooperation. Though he often conceives plans independently, their execution typically involves others. His brothers help him fish up islands and capture the sun. Birds accompany him on his journey to the underworld. His mother and other female relatives provide essential knowledge and tools. This consistent theme suggests that even the most exceptional individuals achieve their greatest successes through meaningful collaboration. A particularly relevant reminder in individualistic modern cultures that sometimes overemphasize solo achievement. Perhaps most profoundly, Maui's entire narrative arc illustrates the human capacity to transform disadvantage into strength. Abandoned at birth and cast into the sea, he might easily have been destroyed by this rejection. Instead, this early adversity becomes the catalyst for his unique development. His rescue by the gods grants him divine knowledge unavailable to others. Throughout his adventures, he repeatedly transforms apparent limitations into advantages through creative perspective shifts. This powerful narrative of resilience and creative adaptation offers inspiration for facing personal and collective challenges with transformative imagination rather than resignation. Today, the legends of Maui continue to reverberate throughout Pacific cultures and beyond, demonstrating remarkable resilience and adaptability in the face of modernization. Far from being relegated to history books or cultural museums, these ancient stories have found new life in contemporary expressions. Indigenous artists across Polynesia create powerful works inspired by Maui's exploits. From traditional wood carvings and tapa cloth designs to modern paintings, sculptures, and digital art that reinterpret his adventures for contemporary audiences while maintaining cultural authenticity and spiritual significance. The influence of Maui extends well beyond traditional art forms into contemporary media and popular culture. His stories have been adapted into children's books, graphic novels, theatrical performances, and animated films that have introduced this Pacific hero to global audiences. While some adaptations have been criticized for oversimplification or cultural appropriation, others, particularly those created with meaningful indigenous consultation and participation, have successfully translated these ancient narratives into forms accessible to younger generations while respecting their cultural origins and deeper meanings. Educational systems throughout the Pacific increasingly incorporate Maui's legends into their curricula, recognizing their value not only for cultural preservation, but also for teaching scientific concepts, environmental stewardship, problem-solving, and ethical decision-making. In Hawaii, New Zealand, and other Pacific nations, these stories provide a foundation for place-based education that connects students to their cultural heritage and physical environment simultaneously. This educational approach helps young Pacific Islanders develop a strong sense of identity and belonging in an increasingly globalized world. The wisdom embedded in Maui's adventures offers valuable perspectives on contemporary challenges. His balanced approach to innovation, improving human conditions while respecting natural boundaries, speaks directly to our modern struggle to achieve technological progress without environmental destruction. The collaborative elements in his stories, where he often works with family members or animal companions to accomplish his goals, model approaches to problem-solving that value community wisdom over individual heroics, a perspective increasingly valued in addressing complex global issues. For indigenous Pacific communities engaged in cultural revitalization and political self-determination movements, Maui represents an empowering symbol of resilience and agency. His refusal to accept limiting conditions and his creative approach to overcoming obstacles resonates with communities working to address historical injustices and contemporary challenges. The very survival of his stories through centuries of colonization serves as a testament to cultural persistence and the enduring power of indigenous knowledge systems. Scientists and scholars have also found value in these ancient narratives. Ethnobotanists study the plants mentioned in Maui's Fire Quest to understand traditional ecological knowledge. Geologists note how accurately some versions of the fishing legend describe submarine topography that would have been invisible to ancient peoples, suggesting sophisticated observational skills. Astronomers recognize that Maui's sun snaring contains accurate information about solstices and seasonal changes. These intersections between myth and science highlight the observational precision embedded within traditional knowledge systems. You drift toward sleep with the adventures of Maui still dancing in your mind. Remember that you've participated in a tradition that spans thousands of years and thousands of miles across the Pacific. The same stories that comfort you tonight once guided master navigators as they crossed vast ocean expanses, helped communities understand their place in the cosmos, and provided entertainment around evening fires on countless islands. In listening, you've become part of this unbroken chain of storytelling that connects past to present and spans cultures worldwide. Finally, consider what personal meaning you might draw from Maui's journey. Perhaps his clever problem-solving inspires your own creative thinking. Maybe his commitment to improving conditions for others motivates your community involvement. Or possibly his final lesson, that we must ultimately make peace with our mortality, offers perspective on what truly matters in your own finite time. Whatever resonates with you, carry it forward as your own small piece of the immense cultural treasure that is the legend of Maui, the hero who fished up islands and tamed the sun, whose deeds continue to illuminate our world just as the sun. He slowed still brightens our days.